Welcome, Loukman. We are going to start from actually where we have been, right? The criticism part. That is the thing that I've appreciated a lot about you, by the way.
Yeah.
It is, when the movie came out,
Yeah.
I saw how I thought at first, initially I thought you had sat down with the PR team at Netflix to sort of be wholesome. That's the word I think. The way you sort of responded to how people were like criticizing most of your work. And I know, like, if you read about many artists, it's sort of a thing. No, not artists generally. Many people, builders, I would say, people who build things. It's part of the attitude. Yeah. How do you think that affects your work? Like being able to be responsive to that kind of to like negative feedback, say, and taking it in, or like opening yourself up to that, because sometimes that can be cruel to some people. One bad feedback can be like the closing for that chapter.
Really? That's very interesting. I think for me, how I've handled feedback, it stems back from how I was raised. So I've always been an artist in a family where both my parents have no idea where I even started drawing from. None of them are artists. So being a sketch artist, here I am drawing all these sketches as a child. Now I show my parents. My parents are not Bazungu parents who are like going to be impressed simply because you've scribbled. So they ask you, what is it? What were you drawing? And I'm like, it's a goat. I'm like, a goat? That doesn't look like a goat. So you start learning that when people criticize you, it's not because they don't like you. They just, the thing that you think you've created is not really there. So, and now it's coming from your parents. These people love you, and you stop associating criticism with hate. Like, I wouldn't call people who criticize me haters, So for me, it's from that background. But then again, every time I see people criticizing me online, especially for Girl in the Yellow Jumper, it's such a strange film for me because it came out like 4 years after its creation. So by the time it came out, I've pretty much looked at it, hated it, recovered, moved on, made other things that, in my opinion, kind of tried to fix the problems that I had in that one. So how I've always looked at it was more like, let's say someone is in Form 1, they write an exam, and then that exam gets lost. And now they've moved, now they're in Form 4, and now that paper comes back, and it's being reviewed on the assembly, and they're saying, how can you answer? And you're thinking, well, that was then. I didn't know that thing then, but now I know it. And it puts you in a position where you're like, whenever someone criticizes you on something, I mean, the best thing you can say is, okay, I acknowledge that, because you indeed you have, and you've worked upon fixing that for years. So for them, they're just seeing this now, but you've gone over that a long time. So with that film, it was more. I don't want to say I didn't really care that much, but I don't think any of the feedback would affect me personally. Like it didn't get to me to that level. So most of the times, and there are categories of it as well. So there's this criticism that I actually look for. Like I actively go around looking for. And I usually get that from my colleagues and people that would kind of do the same job.
Yeah.
Or people that are not necessarily into the film world, but I know that these people are such film lovers and they understand film. And I've had them talk about a movie, and I see that they pick up more than an average audience would pick. So I would share projects with these people and ask them, okay, what's wrong with it? And I'm looking for criticism, but there's a reason I'm looking for it. It's to improve myself. And then there's also people that criticize you because they've seen something that is an artistic choice. You intended this to be like this, but they are not thinking at that level. They don't get it. Yeah. So when someone like that comes to you, sometimes if you have the time, you can try to explain to them that, you see, I'm making a movie. I'm not trying to make a documentary. It's not real. So some of these things are actually creative decisions I made, knowing that it doesn't work like this in real life, but I know what I'm doing. And then there's also criticism that comes from people that just don't like you. And I feel like that's probably the saddest one, and you can always tell. You can always tell because there's so much. There's like so much energy put into the messaging, and you're like, what? Like, why? Like, why do you care so much about this? Like, just don't watch it, you know? So sometimes that's the one that you look at and you type out like a clever comeback, and you're like, but people will think I'm being rude or mean or whatever. Let me just leave this. But there are those different types. So you have to kind of like handle each one kind of like the way it comes. Some you just ignore. Some you reply. Some people genuinely want to know, and you can tell they're asking questions like, okay, so why is this like that? And those ones sometimes I even go to their inboxes and try to explain to them. And I always have my kid siblings telling me that, I mean, you can't be explaining these things to people. And I'm like, maybe these are filmmakers and they're trying to learn something. And if I know this thing, I can explain it to them. So it's not like I'm defending anything. I'm just, because I'm also growing, you know. So yeah, I mean, that's my take on criticism.
Okay, so question, right? Who are you making the music, the films for? And the example I want to give is one of my favorite rappers, Kendrick Lamar. He released an album. And I listened to it. It has like songs that I like. This is a guy that I like religiously. You know, like someone you put notifications everywhere. If there's something new on Google will tell me there's something they've written about Kendrick Lamar, you know, something like that, right?
Yeah.
So he released an album and I listened to it, and I like it wasn't flowing the way I expected it. I didn't appreciate it that much, right? The way they expected it. So now I have to go through like his interviews to sort of understand his state of mind creating this, right? And part of what, in my opinion, part of what I don't like about the album is it's not. Usually when I listen to his music, you listen to the whole album. It's not like listening to a list of singles. It's not like listening to Drake, basically, like a playlist, right? You're listening to an album. He has designed the whole thing from beginning to end to just be listened to that way. But this one, it seemed like, you know, in the middle of the thing, you lose attention. It doesn't flow the right way, right? It seems like maybe he didn't pay enough attention. But according to his interviews, he actually intended it to be disorganized because that's the emotion he's bringing out, right? So the album is about him trying to heal from struggling. That's what every rapper does, right? Yeah, and that is what he's trying to say in the album. And it is disorganized. It's not smooth intentionally, right? But then, so I'm wondering, you know, if I don't have time for this, because most people who like listen to music don't have time to listen to the guys' interviews. I'm just like maybe too fanatic, to listen to the guys, to sort of try to understand why the guy is going this direction, right? It's the same thing with a film for you, for example, right? Making a film, are you trying to meet the audience? Are you trying to like express yourself? What is like the point? What is when you're sitting out to design a film, right? Are you trying to challenge yourself? Because also there is that, right? This is what Kanye West I think does a lot, and I'm going to make a few references to music, but I think you'll keep following, right? There is making a film because you want to do something, and we do the same thing as well. We do some music videos and stuff like that, right? There's doing a thing because you want to challenge yourself, right? We saw this guy pulling some nice gimbal move, and the next guy who comes to tell us, hey, you guys, can you do for me a music video? You just know that I saw that thing and I want to try it, right? And the whole point is, the story is secondary to the fact that you want to challenge yourself to do something that's technically complex. There's an option where, if I pull off these simple things, this is what the audience wants, right? So part of what we do is also we do reels for bars and what. And most of these are very, very similar to what everyone else is doing for Instagram. It's, you go for 1 minute and see a reel of people drinking alcohol and having a party, right? That's it. So that we are doing intentionally for the audience. And then the stuff we do, this podcast especially, for us. Yeah, me and Mark, right now, even no one is there. People don't work on Saturday, but we still do it because I enjoy talking. I enjoy listening to people. Like for you, we've looked for you for a very long time, right? This is like interesting.
Without my knowledge.
No, but we have. By the way, we've reached out multiple times. Yeah, maybe you just didn't know that it's the same podcast.
Probably didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, but so there are like those perspectives as an artist, and some trying to understand from your film, right? I know obviously there has to be like a percentage of each. Where do you think, let's say for Girl in the Yellow Jumper, where do you think you were making that film? Were you, Loukman Ali, trying to challenge myself to make a feature film, or Loukman Ali trying to tell a story that is important to me?
I think that was me just trying to challenge. But to be honest, I'm not really. I don't want to create this impression that this story is too important to me. That yeah, and I used to get these issues because I used to draw a lot, and there's all these movies we've watched where these artists are there talking, and they're being interviewed, and they sound like artists, and there's this thing that they get visions and they paint the visions. Like, I'm not that type of person. I'm just there and I see something interesting and I'm like, I need to just create this. And it's kind of like an itch. Like, it just has to be created. It's not because of some sort of genius that's burning and I'm like seeing weird numbers and stuff like that. And nothing like that. So with the Girl in the Yellow Jumper, I done small commercials. I'd done a short film. I think it was The Bad Mexican. I done a couple of small things. So in my head, I was thinking, there's a couple of small ideas that I've always wanted to create, but I feel like now I'm ready to make a feature film. And in my head, I was thinking, what's a feature film if not a couple of short films put together? You know. So I'm thinking, well, let me just try that out. You know. And that's kind of how Girl in the Yellow Jumper happened. And it's a miracle that we're still talking about that film because I don't even understand. Like, that film is... Imagine I'm here today, we're making this interview, and you promise that it's going to be an hour, right? And 15 minutes in, I die, right? And now, you need to make up the rest of it somehow.
Yeah, that was creative
so,
film. Yeah.
So you start thinking of like, okay, how do I make the rest of this happen? And because of that, I feel like I exercised my creative muscles way too much, to the point that people tend to notice like trivial things, like small mistakes. And the big thing that I was extremely worried about kind of just passes over most of their heads. Most people, a few people catch it. They're like, the way this story looks, it looks like there's something that was supposed to be there that missed. Very few people understood that. And for those people that got it, I was almost like too impressed with them. I was like, wow, amazing that you actually caught that. And I'm also amazed by myself for the fact that I was able to hide it from very many people. People keep picking out all these tiny mistakes, and I'm like, oh my God, thank God I put those mistakes are there. Maybe they're distracting them from the bigger one that I'm glad they're not seeing. So it was a challenge for myself that ended up being an incredibly hard journey for me. And that's exactly why once I got done with that film, I ran into making The Blind Date. It was kind of like therapy for me, kind of to recover from that, and also trying to fix some of the major issues I saw in that film. Because I'm like my number one critic. So before someone comes and tells me something, I've already seen it in myself, and I'm working towards fixing it. So, Girl in the Yellow Jumper, I tried fixing some of those issues in The Blind Date. And then during that process, I realized I got more issues now. I got other issues, and I tried to fix those in 16 rounds. And now, when I look at most of the scripts that I'm writing, I see that I'm not making the same mistakes that I was making in, let's say, Girl in the Yellow Jumper. Right now, there's a lot of things I know how to fix on the page. You know, now I know that this is too slow without filming it. Before, I couldn't tell while it was still on the page. But now I can look at it and I'm like, yeah, this is a bit slow, this is a bit this. And to answer your question about who I make movies for, the honest truth is, for me, I make movies for myself. And when I say myself, I don't mean me alone. I mean people like myself, people people that we share the same sensibilities. Like the things that I'm okay watching. I'm not easily offended by anything. I can take a joke. I mean at home we almost greet ourselves with insults. I grew up with a lot of boys.
Did you go to a single-sex school?
That
is where you get that kind of...
No, I didn't. But it's more like you enter the house and it's whoever has the worst line. Yeah. Everyone just throws an insult until the best one wins, and you move on. It's not like anyone is hurt. we take it as it is, as a joke. So when I'm making my movies, in my head, I'm thinking my audience is people like myself, people that are not too serious with life, people that are not thinking that everything has to have meaning, everything has to have a reason. Some things just happen because they happen. So people that, people who play games, people who watch cartoons, people like that. Those are the kind of people that I'm not trying, and I don't want anyone to ever get that impression. I'm not trying to make a movie for everyone. So I mean, if someone finds themselves not liking it, it's not for them, and that's fine. There's so many other things for everyone, but I just don't believe in that idea of trying to make movies that have everything for everyone. I feel like every time I've tried to watch movies like that, I always end up not liking them at all, because they don't know. For me, it feels like they don't really know who they're aiming for. You understand, you know. So yeah, that's my.
So then
philosophy.
the complexity there comes from sort of balancing art you make sort of to impress yourself or to impress people like you, versus something that can be commercially viable. You know, assuming that you and people like you are very small niche to pay for film, because I've been to a couple of spaces that you've hosted where you talk about the budget, right? These are very expensive projects, right? So how do you reconcile that? Like when you're planning the project, right? Or is it not like money coming out is not like a big factor? How do you reconcile me writing a story that I'm shooting to be commercially viable, which means, it has to have some pop elements. I have to shoot for obvious things that I know will be entertaining for the majority of people, versus me doing a film that I'll watch later and be like, yeah, I'm a great artist.
Yeah, I think we've been proven over and over again that that's actually wrong. I mean, you look at movies like Deadpool, the studio wouldn't allow, they're scared of making it like R-rated because that's a very small niche. But it went to make so much money that encouraged other people to also make that. That's how you ended up getting Logan, So I feel like we tend, and again, because I'm from an advertising background, I remember this very well. We would design a logo and a client would tell us how their clients, so their audience, is too dumb to understand that. And I always thought that was a little insulting, because you think that you think for everyone. Now, you might be like, how will border people watch this movie? You forget that border people are graduates. They just don't have jobs. You see them on a bike and you just, you judge them and you think these people, since they're riding this motorcycle, therefore they can't compute this level of logic or whatever.
Yeah.
I just don't believe that. Simply don't. So for me, I also don't think that I'm that unique. There's no way. I feel like people like myself probably, if I was to collect people that think like me and are like myself throughout the entire world, probably make up like the whole population of Uganda, probably like even more, probably more. So for me, I look at it that it has to be true to a certain group, and that group is a group like myself, because I can only do things for people like me, because otherwise I'll be lying. I'll be making up things that I don't actually believe in, and it works for a lot of people, but for me, it's just not how I am. So when I'm making my stories, and I have to be careful with this because I'm still learning the whole crafting stories thing. It's incredibly hard, and most people think they know it, and they actually don't. Writing a good story is incredibly difficult, and making it work on screen is another job as well. It's very, very difficult. So for me, when I'm coming up with my stories, I'm thinking, if I like it, my family likes it because they are pretty much like myself. In my head, I'm like, yeah, that's a good film. That's a good film. And anyone that doesn't like it, for me, I'm thinking it's not their kind of movie. The same way I look at a TV show that everyone likes, and I just don't like it. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with that show. It's just not my kind of show.
I see.
So I find people that say Breaking Bad is not a very good show. And I almost want to fight, because I'm thinking, how dare you, But it's not for them. It's not for them.
I see.
So if the guy that made that show tried to cater for all these people, I wouldn't enjoy it. Because then he would put in all these things that would annoy me just to bring these people in. But then they will also not enjoy the entire thing because it has some things that I enjoy. So you end up losing, or you might get us in the first episode, but then we start slowly leaving. So for me, that's how I look at it, and I feel like the more I learn how to write stories and how to make, the more ridiculous they're going to get. Like, I'm going to get to a point where I don't think I'll be caring anymore. I'll just be doing what makes me happy.
Yeah, I see.
And funny thing is, you'll find there'll be people for it. People watch videos of people eating. Yeah. Have you ever thought about, think about that? How odd is that? And there's a market for that.
There's a community for that.
There's a community that watches people clean their house, and women are getting paid to just clean a house. Think about that,
Yeah.
So I don't think that there's anything crazy.
I see. So okay. So and when I said commercially viable, I mean obviously there has to be an audience for everything. Yeah. But my question is, do you think of maximizing that aspect? Like, my movie, the intention is to make sure I'm targeting as many people as possible. Like, when I'm writing, when I'm sort of designing the whole project, this is an important factor. Is that something you consider?
Absolutely not. So for me, I don't consider the most, to get as many people as possible. For me, it's to get to the right people. Because I believe the right people are the right amount I need. I feel like unless you're selling toothpaste, you don't really need to be in everyone's house. I think you just need to get to the people you have to get to. So for movies, given the fact that I am also a consumer of films, and I know that there are movies that are good, but that I don't like, just going by that, by my own self, using myself as the test dummy, I know you can't really get you look at all these movies like Player. There's a movie that came out by Spielberg, Player One something.
I think.
Yeah, those are movies designed to bring everyone, because they're throwing in everything, and they end up being failures because again, you can't really just bring everyone in. So all these movies you look at that have tried to do that, they end up so for me, I feel like trying to concentrate on your niche, on your group, the small market, and just try to grow that and make it for example, now if I'm making a film and it's going to be at the cinema, I know there's people that will not miss. I know that the people that will definitely come. And when they're coming, they'll be expecting something. There's a certain level of thing that they'll be thinking in Loukman's film, we are not going to get these lectures about how to live our lives, because he will never do that. That's not what he does. So think about those people now. If they get into the cinema and I start doing exactly that, so not only will I lose those, I'll still not get even the other ones that will, Loukman has a lot of violence in his things. So I'll end up just losing everyone. So I have to stick to the things that I enjoy and hope that people that are like myself will keep finding out and keep joining in. And I know we can make up all those numbers. I
see. Yeah. Okay. So that's one aspect, right? If let me say if you watch Tarantino, right? It's easy for you to appreciate the work after it is done, right? So that's one thing. Even if sort of even if he's bringing a unique perspective to filmmaking, say some of these the earlier works, right? After the piece is done, after you're watching what's that thing with Samuel Jackson?
Pretty much everything he has made.
The thing with Samuel Jackson and this other guy, crap, I forget the name.
Travolta.
Yeah, with Travolta.
Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction, right? If you're watching Pulp Fiction, right, you'll be yeah, okay, this the dialogue thing, maybe this is a new way to do it, but you appreciate it, okay, there's art there, right? So that's one thing, meeting an audience that didn't know your kind of art before. But then what about the team, right? There's if you're doing something that is not just the fundamentals, right? So you're doing film, or you're a musician, there are things you have to know, right? Maybe the notes or whatever. For film, you have to know the angles. You're from cinematography world. You have to know most of those basics, right? But then when you want to put in your own artistic POV into the whole thing, you have to still work with other people, right? You have to work with, and the example I can give, I made a short film in 2013, and we shot with a bunch of people. And then the editor, when I gave the editor the work and the screenplay. I wrote a full structured screenplay. I gave him the work, and then he came and he had cut part of sort of the most important part of the dialogue. There was a monologue bit in the short film, and the editor cut about maybe 2 lines out of it, so that it fits within the time I think submitting for ZIF. So when the film was accepted in ZIF, and I was there when people were watching, everyone was asking me what the point was, because those 2 lines that were supposed to mean perhaps the most important thing, the guy had cut out, right? And it's because we had a back and forth with him about, these 2 lines have to be there, but he just didn't get it. How does it, for you, when it comes to getting the team to sell your idea on before it's actual an idea? How complex is that? And I see in most of your movies you're using the same actors, for example. So I see maybe now for actors you found people who understand you. But what about these other people in the ecosystem? Yeah.
I think it's been a very challenging thing for me. And this is why I've always had trouble doing massive collaborations, because it's really hard when you have different visions. I've recently worked on a project in Nigeria, and I mean, on paper, it was for me. I thought this was going to be a really, really, really massive, but what I've learned from that is that sometimes, because in regards to filmmaking, there isn't a right or wrong way of doing things. So you have your way of doing stuff, and then I have my way of doing things. The goal is we're all trying to get to the finishing line, but how we get there is different. So for me, there's a way I work, and then there's a way other people work, and I see what you're talking about, the clashing where ideas just don't seem to be. This project kind of taught me to let go, because normally I shoot my things, edit them, and I get it to the millimeter of exactly what I want. Whether that is bad or good,
I see.
at least it's what I wanted.
Yeah.
It's what I wanted. And now with this, it's kind of out of my control. And I am sitting back, waiting to see what it will be like. And and in my head, I'm thinking, oh my God, it's not the same. So for me, how I've dealt with it is pretty much tried to learn all these things, so I at least I have an idea of how to do them, so that people don't use let's say someone can take advantage of you by using their laziness. Let's say they don't want to do something because they're feeling slightly lazy, and they try to convince you that it shouldn't be done, but it's simply because they're lazy and they just don't want to do it. But if you have an idea of how to do the thing yourself, let's say you're trying to build a set and someone tells you we need 10,000 nails, and you're like, but you're joining only 3. I've built this before. You don't need 10,000 nails. You only need 70. So having an idea on things, for me at least, I feel like it helps a lot. I mean, if you knew how to edit, you'd probably just take that and try to put it together yourself. And it's kind of how I've been able to do these things. Because sometimes there's a time I spent 4 days without sleeping trying to put something together. And I wondered, would someone else have done this for me? Spent 4 days without sleep just to make this work? Absolutely not.
I see. There's a
So yeah.
there's a I don't know whether it's in the book. There's that book by Isaac Walter Isaacson, the book about Steve Jobs, where guys couldn't get the right calculator for the first Mac. So that sort of they would bring a calculator and they would look at it and be like, no, this is not good. This is not good. This is not good. Until they decided to just build for him something that he can use to build a calculator. So he didn't understand like how to actually like code up the calculator. So they built for him something that can use to build his own calculator basically. And they wanted to import it as a feature, like you can build your own calculator using these buttons. And so he built one calculator, and it's the one that's still in the mark right now, right? Do you from what you're saying, it seems like in the end, the only way you get to resolve these conflicts with other team members is to take up the work on your own? Do you feel like
it's probably not the best way to do it, but it's a way, you know? And it's for me, if I need something done in a certain way, unless you have backup to show me why your way works better than my way.
That was going to be my other question. What about that artistic thing? So you have your artistic way.
Yeah.
You're so convinced this works.
Yeah.
I have my own artistic way. So this is not good or bad. It's just different.
Different,
right?
yes.
Exactly. How do you go about resolving that? Is it like my way goes?
No, it's not really about my way. It's about the way that works for the project. So I've not been in this position before because, I mean, you're aware of this. People keep saying this, that, there's so many people in Uganda that can do this. But we all know there are not as many as people
actors.
make it.
Talk about actors.
Yeah, actors, people that do VFX, people that shoot really well.
Yeah.
There are very, very few people. So let's say I'm going to shoot my film, and my plan is I'm going to shoot it like this, with this rig and like that. Now, there's probably so many other ways of shooting that might even be better than that. But you need to convince me that that's the better way of doing it, because I've tested and it has worked.
I see. Yeah.
So you need to have something, like show me where you've done it and it has worked. And I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'm willing to take mine down, basing on these facts that you've done this before and it worked for you.
I see.
Let's try that. So that's the reason. It's people tend to always say, you need to collaborate. But what people don't realize is that if you're making a car and you build this really, really nice exterior, and you need to collaborate with someone to create an engine, you have to work with someone that has made engines before, someone that their engines inspire you. You look at their engine and it just makes you want to make cars.
Yeah.
So collaboration is like that. Someone has to add value, probably more value than you can add yourself.
They have to have a way of proving the expertise, basically.
Exactly. So it's for building. It's for adding. It's not for taking away. It's not like let me shoot, and then the guy who's going to do the lighting, let's just give him a chance to play around and mess it up. If you can't do these lights better than I would, and yet you're the lighting guy, it's better I just do it myself. Let me just do it myself. But if you're better, if you're putting them in places I've never even thought about, then you're a member of the team that I can't work without. You've put yourself in that position where I have to have you there, and I have people like this on my team. I used to do music for myself in my films before. Commercials, I would do all those things myself. And it took a long time for someone to convince me that, we can actually do music for you. We can do this for you. We can do this. It took me a long time because I was like, but this is so instrumental to the film. And then I gave someone a chance. They tried their music while I was doing mine so that I don't lose in case they fail. And what they ended up doing was way better than mine. And I trashed this, and I've never gone back to doing it myself. It shows you I'm not interested in doing all these things myself. But I really don't see the purpose of giving up something to someone who does it less than you. What does?
I mean that makes sense. I can't argue with you on that.
It's like I cook the food. I also make the sauce. And they're like, but why do you do all those things yourself? okay, let me just cook the food, and then someone burns the sauce, and you're like, at least it's collaboration. It's burnt, but it's collaborative burning. I don't see the
Right.
point.
So let's go to the specifics now, right? So I know right now you're sort of like a household name. You've had your movie on Netflix, so it's probably not the same challenge as before. But say at the time of doing Girl in the Yellow Jumper, right? How do you go about getting the right team? How do you go about casting? You know, how do you like? What are you using networks of people you know? Are you spending money to actually like, get someone to do the casting as a real job? How are you doing that?
So there's like ways these things are done in Hollywood. I'm guessing that's probably how it's done. But for us here, especially when you're poor, there's a way you have to think about things.
Yeah.
So most of these short films, I've invested my own money. And now when you've invested money in something, it has to work. It has to work. I've taken chances on things I'm not aware of until someone explained to me, you have to look at these things the same way like any other business. You know, if you have a company and let's say it's a hospital and you're hiring people to work in this hospital, you'll ask for experience. Every single place will ask for experience.
Yeah.
Most times 10 years. Even if you're coming straight from school and you have all the documentation to show, they still want experience. And it's like, it's a paradox. Like, how do you get that experience without being given a chance? You know? That's kind of how it is everywhere. So even with movies and acting, someone has put up their money. They're going to make this film. An actor is like so instrumental. Like they're almost like they push the whole thing.
I agree totally.
So they're key. Now you're getting someone who's going to be this key piece of your puzzle.
Probably the face of the project.
The face, definitely the face, and they've not done anything like that, or maybe they are really, really talented, but they've not really taken the time or even cared to invest in themselves, to push themselves out there, you know, to prove to anyone that wants to work with them that they're actually worth taking a chance on. So most actors, for them, they don't really look at it as an investment. They don't see all this money and all this time. They don't understand that each day probably costs you so much money to sit there. So for them, they're thinking, why don't you give me a chance? I come there, try out. If I fail, I go home. Now for them, failure is as easy as just picking up their bags and going home.
Yeah.
But to you, failure is too expensive. It's too expensive.
Yeah.
So most times you try, put out all these audition calls, you see people you watch, and you realize how unserious most of these people are. They don't take it serious. They think, oh, I'll come act after doing my job. You know, I'll let me first go out to work, do this, then I'll come back and act. So you start thinking about all these things and you end up going to the safe people, the safe bet. Now, that safe person might not necessarily be your first choice, but they get the job done. So I think people need to understand that. I don't think they will, but that's how it is.
I see. And where are you finding these guys? So I know Junior Wawuyo. I went to school with him, by the way. Yeah. We are hobbies of Ginger College. So where do you find them? And I know, like, I used to spend, before when I was in my first year at university, I used to also do a film program. So I used to spend a lot of time at the theater. So most of these guys are there. But I don't know if that's still the same thing. And so now we've grown. Like, we were still young and we had time to go and just sit at the theater and look at things. Where do you find, like, actors?
So, because of my the fact that I've been working in commercials, most of them, sometimes you work with them on a commercial. So how that has been helpful is on a commercial, you're working on such a small thing. It's not your money. It's like client is paying for this.
Yeah.
So you bring in someone. They're doing a very tiny role, but in that tiny role, you get to see things like they came on time, they were there up to this time, they're willing to listen to directions, they're trying hard enough to like get things right, stuff like because shoots are high stress environments. It's easy to get stressed out, So you're trying to see under this stress, what will this person do? Like, is it will we be able to finish this film? Will they just will they walk away? Stuff like that. Yeah, because let's say if I'm working on a film and I'm the grip or the DOP, I can walk away in the middle of the film.
The project, yeah.
And that might affect the film, but mostly professionals will be the only ones that might notice.
Yeah.
It's like someone else can come in, and as long as the lighting guy is the same, they can try to still get the same style, and they'll probably. Now, if an actor left, it leaves you in a position where it's like the whole thing is just going to die.
Have to redo all the work.
So a lot of the project hinges on that, on these people, and who you pick. A decision is so important, and that's how people end up picking the same people, because he was on that project and it went well, finished, no problems. Okay, let me work with the same guy, as opposed to this person who might be the most talented person in the country.
I see.
But you've never seen them anywhere. You don't know what you're getting into. You don't know if they have any experience with any of these things. So what do you do?
So you're saying reliability basically is at same par as talent almost.
Sometimes even more.
More.
Yeah. Like hard work sometimes is sometimes hard work beats talent.
I see. And you try to, like, as a safeguard, you try to like push them into contracts or like agreements where it's sort of risky or expensive for them to quit on you?
Before, not really. But now I have to.
Yeah.
But also, I think because of how, for me, most of the things I do, it's like passion is the first thing. So I'm not doing things because of money or because of, I like these things. I enjoy doing these things. So I don't want to make a film with an actor who's like, okay, I want to go, but let's do this. You should be there. You should want to be there. You should, because that's what I'm doing it for. So, well, now I have to do contracts, of course, because it's not even me. Like, there's people that are demanding from the back. They're like, we need contracts for these people. So, stuff like that has to happen now.
Yeah, and the rest of the crew. So I know actors is one thing. The rest of the team. So I know, for example, actors. It's hard to know if I had enough money to shoot a film. I know actors that I would want, right? Because when you watch the movie, it's the people you see. So you say, oh, I saw Awuyo. That guy is impressive. I saw Awuyo, and it looks like the character I had in mind when I was writing. Let me figure out how to find him. Just go on Twitter and say who has Awuyo's contact. But when it comes to like editors, when it comes to the gaffers, guys who have light, the sound guys, where do people find those people?
Same way. You watch a movie and you're like, oh, this movie is really well lit. So you watch the credits. You're like, oh, so that's the guy that did that.
I see.
And then you look.
Okay.
And then you look for that guy.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yes, usually, okay, anyway, that would work if you have that kind of budget. I would imagine there is like some sort of, okay, I don't know if they do it in Hollywood as well. There would be some sort of place you go to find film talent. That's how I would imagine, right? Because the alternative is you publish in the New Vision that we are looking to recruit a sound man for this project, right?
Good luck with that.
How do people do it here? Is it like you actually watch credits and follow up on people, or do all filmmakers in Uganda basically have to be within the community for a while, like within the grassroots community?
Oh, okay. Like I told you before, for any job in the world, they'll always ask for that experience.
Yeah.
So for me, what I feel like, for you to get that experience, sometimes you just have to hire yourself. Like, I always wanted to be a director when I was like growing up, and then I quickly realized that actually no one will ever make me a director. I have to make myself the director. And like, because you try to convince people that I think I can do this, and no one believes you. No one and that's how it is. It's how it is. I mean, expecting anything better than that will just disappoint you. So you want to be a director, And you just hire yourself as a director. You just
Understand.
write your thing or make up your thing and then direct it. And if you fail, then you know you can't direct, then try something else, you know? So I feel like for you to be an editor, you have to edit. Because going out and looking for a job as an editor simply because you like or you want or you feel like I feel like that's it has that kind of entitlement. Like you
Arrogance
just
a little bit.
feel like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I can do it. Therefore, spend your money and risk your time and everything on me. I feel like you need to go out there. Maybe pick one of those old films and re-edit it in a different way. And someone watches it and says, "Oh my god, yeah, through only the power of editing, this person has actually changed this sequence, or they've cut a trailer out of this, or they've cut something out of this and turned it into something different." And I feel like that's how people get jobs. You get the job by doing the job, unfortunately.
yes.
So, in terms of crew, you'll find people will watch a movie, they'll listen to the sound, they're like, "Oh, the sound is so clean. I wonder who recorded this." They watch the credits, they reach out to that person, then they try to find out from other people that have worked with this person, how is it working with them? How is the sound? Were they responsible for the sound in this film? Is there anyone else involved we don't know about? Stuff like that.
Okay, yeah. I watched, I think a while back, as I've said, I've been stalking a little bit. I watched, I think, on NTV. Okay, when the movie came to Netflix,
Yeah.
you had some time on the media website.
Yeah,
So yeah, on one of the things on Netflix, you mentioned that
a little bit more than I'm usually comfortable with.
you mentioned that you quit on university to instead do graphics, right?
But
You didn't go to university, you instead chose to do graphics.
yeah, that story is quite interesting. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's actually what I want to understand. Like, how do you, first of all, how do you make such a decision? Seems like a careless decision to make, right?
Yeah.
The second question is, what about your parents? Normally, your parents will tell you, you guy,
Yeah.
yeah, we know you can draw cartoons, but no. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with my parents also.
So your parents are like, just go do it.
Yeah, I think they.
But what about the confidence in? Is it like just childhood rebellion? I know when I was at MOOC as well, I was doing software engineering. But then Maisha Film Lab, I don't know if you're familiar with them, they had come to Uganda. So they accepted my screenplay and I went to be part of the program, I think for, I forget how long, right? And for a moment there, like leaving, I met this guy of Breaking Bad, Giancarlo Esposito. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so like a moment of being there, I like after the program ended and I have to go back to sit in like a computing class, I'm like, is this really what I want to do, right?
Yeah.
And it's very, very clear, like this thing has sort of opened my mind to what would make me alive, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, there is no way my parents are going to allow me to do that. And also, more importantly, money, I don't want to die poor. I don't want to be a poor artist in the future, right? I wasn't confident enough that maybe I'll be able to pull it off in film. So I'm wondering, for you as a person, as your own personal decision, is it like personal rebellion? I know people who have that character. Maybe I don't have it, right? Who just be like, this makes sense in the moment, so I'm going to just do it. And then some of them get lucky, some of them don't. For you, do you actually assess this and say, this actually won't be as useful for me. School won't be as useful for me. Formal school won't be as useful for me as going to pursue something that I'm actually confident, rather that I'm actually enjoying to do.
I feel like some people are just lucky enough to have like kind of a vision for the future. I'm not saying I'm one of those people, but I remember back in, must have been like 2000, like 2004, 5, 6, around there. A cousin of mine came and told me a story that, oh man, I wish we had money. There's this thing around. They're called bitcoins. It's like money, but it's like the future of money.
Yeah.
But right now, it's like you can use it to buy games and stuff like that online. But if you buy it, keep it. Who knows? Maybe later on it can actually become real money. Stuff like that, right? Now here we're talking about this thing, and we would buy it if we had money. We just didn't have money to buy it, right? So I've just finished high school, and I'm there just wondering, what am I going to do with my life? There's all these plans I had. once I'm done with school, I'm going to start this kind of business. But as the idea I had when I was in Form 4, by the time I'm done with Form 6, it's so saturated. Everyone is doing it. It's no longer like a viable, business.
What idea was that?
Huh?
What idea was that?
So again, I was interested in movies, so I wanted to make like a video library. Because at the time, you would buy those original DVDs that come with everything behind the scenes, and they cost, I think around, was it 20,000 or something?
Yeah, I remember those.
And to hire them, they would be 5K. So I had some aunties and all these that would buy them, like originals, watch them. Once they're done, I'm like, I keep them. So I had a collection, such a big collection. And in my mind, I was thinking, okay, so once I'm done, I'll find a place, put all these DVDs, 5K. People will hire them. That would be a good thing for me. Now I'm out of school and DVDs are like almost 100 shillings, So I'm thinking that was a waste. So I'm trying to go to figure out what to study at the university. And the only two things I'm interested in at the time are computers and art. Those are the only things that actually I enjoy doing. Yeah. I used to enjoy biology, but not like the writing part of it. It's more of like the fascination of listening to the things, and also even physics, the fascination of listening to these things. Those things were like, I enjoyed them a lot, but I couldn't see myself like actually sitting down and reading books and writing things like that. I'm more interested in just listening to how the body works and all these things. So I'm going to university, and at this time everyone is just running in, and you know how it is. People, especially here, we tend to do what our parents want. So you do what the popular thing is. You go to university and everyone is picking the course that everyone else is picking because it seems like the right thing to do. You don't want to be left. You don't want to be the guy that's doing the course that no one else does. Which is funny because that's what you should be doing.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's until you grow up that you realize that.
Yeah. So I, again, as a child, introverted. Most of my friends were adults, very old people. Those are the friends I had. So my dad's friends were my friends.
Okay.
So now I'm seeing all these people. During my holidays, I go and I work in their offices, cleaning around and doing all these things. And I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, I want to do computer sciences, but look at how intelligent these people are. And look at how much money they're getting. They're getting like 800K. And they're so intelligent, they're so smart. I'm not even a quarter of that. So how will I ever study and get to their level to be able to get that money? Yet I'm hoping to get more, So computer science just started becoming less interesting for me. Now I'm looking at industrial art. So I went to MOOC and Chambogo. And I went into the final year classes, the students
Oh, wow. Auditing the classes.
Yeah, so go into the class and see what people are doing, just and the idea was if there's anything that they're doing that I can't figure out without having to pay that university money, then there's no point. If I got there and people are making sculptures, I'm thinking I could just go in Zambia and watch people doing them, or even go there with my tuition money and pay them, and I say, can I sit here and learn? So I'm thinking, but do I want to end up making sculptures? That's not my goal. That's not what I want to do. And also, because of my interest in computers, I had kind of been on YouTube and looked at all these things, seen that there's all these CNC machines. Well, they are new at that time. They were new. But with technology, it's always it takes 2 years for things to become the normal thing. So you're seeing all these machines that can do the job that takes you a month, takes it a couple of seconds. I'm thinking this is a silly job to learn because the machine will take over. I'm seeing all these things, and I immediately I just told my parents that I don't think. I feel like what we're learning is very outdated. What I'm seeing in this, it's very, very outdated stuff. Maybe there's other things in there that I didn't catch, but what I'm seeing them concentrating on, I think you can teach yourself on YouTube or something. And I don't know why they even accepted, and they just started giving me some like small money. Go to internet cafes. Internet was a bit scarce then. Internet cafes, and get all these resources, download PDFs, learn how to do things, Photoshop, all these things. Yeah, so that's that story there. I dropped out, and I don't regret that. I to be honest, I feel like university is for rich kids.
I see.
Yeah.
So okay. Question one is from what is the gap between that and you scoring your first paying gig, right? But also the other question, I want to ask this because I may forget it. When you look right now, how much do you think there is a gap from that sort of not knowing the formal stuff, right? So when you're doing a film project, for example, how much do you feel like if you had known, like, okay, I did software engineering from university, right? And I get paid. I have like a formal job, a 9 to 5 for doing like that, right? But I look at people like kids within like this space, the engineering space, the software engineering space, also very creative, and it's easy to penetrate, sort of like graphics design or like editing and things like that, right? And I see, like, I can tell the difference between a kid who can build a nice app but didn't pursue the formal education, from a kid who can build maybe a not so nice app but knows the fundamentals, right? And yeah, obviously, some people are just so talented that education is probably going to just pull them down, right? But then other people, they just needed that. They sort of, that is one thing they needed to sort of express themselves well enough. Do you feel like there's that gap?
I feel like, and I think every time I say that I dropped out of university and I'm like, university is for rich people, people tend to confuse that. They tend to confuse school with education. Like up to today, I'm getting educated all the time. The only difference between school and for me and education is that with education, I get to pick what I want to learn in relation to what I'm doing. You understand? So I'm not just diving into all these lessons and hoping some stick on me. You understand? Because we don't live for that long, So you don't want to spend all your life, like all these first years. People are studying from the time they're like 5, almost well into their 30s. And now you have to look for 10 years of experience. And then, after those 10 years, now you start making some money. But now death is knocking around the corner. And now you have kids. You look at it and you're thinking, what's the point, So for me, my philosophy is to try and learn and only the things you need to learn, and learn them really well and as quickly as possible, so that you can use them in your life and live it. Because it's quickly you're going to die, in a few years. Yeah. So when you look at life like that, you start realizing that sometimes also what you have to understand about the education system, I feel like it, because of the time period it was built, like it's different. Yeah. Things have changed. Yeah. I'll tell you, like, we are not taught about money. There's things they don't teach us. I think they teach us to be people's employees and just work for people and listen to commands. Yeah. There's a bell, then you go for break. Bell, come back and sit there, and then they call your name. You stand up, present, sit down. They tell you when to get out. When you want to go for a short call, you ask for permission. So they're basically just molding you to just be this obedient guy that just
node in a big system, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. They're not teaching you how to think. Like, how do you solve problems? How do you, if you're doing this and this fails, and you don't know exactly, remember in school they might ask you, what is this thing, and you understand it so well that you can explain it in your own words. But they want the actual textbook answer. So it shows you what they want. They don't want you to be thinking. Don't put your brains in this. Give us exactly what we gave you. Just regurgitate. Yeah. So when you look at that, is that a good system? I don't think so. I feel like uh, think about the things we struggle with today, like us who are working. You don't know how to file your tax returns. Like, Kati, why did you go to school? Why did you study economics in HSC? They should be teaching you how to do these things, because this is very important stuff. You need to know how to file your taxes. You need to know how to do all these things, basic things. They go and teach you all these things, all these theories that are almost you can't apply, or they're too big for like where you are. Like these are like massive things that will never apply to you unless you become like chairman of Google or whatever. So when you look at a system like that, you just have to find a way of hacking it and making it work for you. So I encourage people to like get themselves educated, but you need to be very strategic about what you learn. You can't just learn about everything. It's good to know a little bit about everything. It helps you know which things to concentrate more on. But I feel like the goal should be to just get the information you need. Like me, right now, if you looked at my YouTube, you'll see it shows. Usually, I'm looking at film critics, because when they're criticizing other films, I'm seeing myself in these films and I know what not to do. I'm looking at writing and these people explaining how they write and all these things. So that's education, you know. It's not like what we're used to, but because things are changing, you need to kind of change with the things. I don't know if I've answered your question.
No, that's very clear. Okay, that's more than I would have hoped for. The other part was how long you took before you got paid. But before you answer that, right?
Yeah.
Let me ask you a very typical interview question.
Yeah.
Just tell me, because I'm trying to sort of understand, like, from the way you approach of life, from your philosophy of life, how you handle failing. You know, so I want you to, like, if you remember a story where you feel like you failed.
Yeah.
It's I know it's an interview question, but you know, like where you feel like you failed and how you've managed to embracing this kind of philosophy, right? And the reason I ask is because a person who has gone to school, there is a cushion for failure, right? Okay, I mean, a person who has gone to school, who's as intelligent as you, right? Who also has, just play along. A person who's as intelligent as you, right? Who has the papers as well, right? Hardworking, okay, I think that's the right word, rather intelligent, right? A person who's like hardworking, but who also has the papers, they know that if I go and do, say I went to learn economics, whatever, and then I go to Bank of Uganda and I end up to be like very shitty at that and they fire me, you know, because I have my papers, I can always go and look for a job at, some NGO and work as, a failure of like that same career, right? But a person like you who, most of you, okay, right now you have like a movie on Netflix. So you're not a good example, right? But a person who, before then, right? So before then, right? Most of your proof, like also what the transcript helps people prove, is that you actually trained, right? But most of your proof of training is someone has to give you something to show them, right? Like, I can do this. The only way that someone can actually prove that you can do this is by letting you do it, right? How do you handle a place where maybe one person trusts you and you fail?
For me, I believe that failure is an option. Like, well, when people say that, I don't know if it's a saying that NASA has, like, failure is not an option. Like, they have to do it. It has to work. It has to work.
Yeah.
NASA, the space agency, not NASA.
No, I mean, that's a thing for rappers. I don't think NASA has that. NASA must be believing in failure as well. But okay, and I know what you mean. I know the
so for me, I believe that, failure is part of growth. I fail a lot. And I always think that you need to embrace the failures as well. What you said about having your papers to fall onto, I feel like that's kind of like a coward move.
Laziness.
It's like
you said the word laziness before. Yeah, I agree.
It's
I
like
agree with that,
it's like this whole idea, and you probably don't feel this way, but when you travel around, they say travel broadens the mind, right? So let's say you guys, I'm guessing you guys, because I saw the Bible here, I'm guessing you guys are Christians, right?
He was Christian.
Yeah. Now, if he had a chance to go and live in Mecca for 2 years, and he watched Islam from a position he has never watched it before, it would have an impact on his way of thinking, right? Now he takes the next 2 years and he goes to India, right? And then he sits with the Buddhists or with the Hindus or whatever, for 2 years. Something will happen. He goes to Beijing. He goes to all these different people. His perspective will change because he'll find out that they all believe the same thing, but it's just a small twist to it, a small cut change to it. So now he'll be in a position where he's now confused. He's like, okay, so which is which? I mean, because everyone thinks theirs is the absolute truth, right? So a coward might say, let me try to believe in all of them, just in case I reach there and it's one of these ones that's true, I at least have something to fall back on, you know? But a person who's like quite confident in whatever, I'm like, yeah, I'll take the chance with this, and that's it. That's it. If I fail on the other one, it's okay. It's okay to fail. Although with religion, the stakes are quite high. I mean, forever is quite long, especially the last infinite years are quite long. So, yeah, but when you look at these things, like, for example, making movies, there's times you take on a project, you're thinking it's going to come out like this, and it doesn't come out like that. You fail, feel miserable. But then someone else that has never heard of you comes along and they give you a second chance, or you give yourself a chance again. You try, because what I've learned is you really can't learn anything if you don't fail. If you don't fail at all, you can't learn. It's kind of like if you're a boxer and you keep winning in first round, you have no idea how it feels to go all the way, and you don't really know how it feels to lose. So there's so much you don't know. So I feel like for me, how I handle failure is exactly like that. I just try to do better next time.
Yeah, okay. So the consequences. So sometimes failure doesn't give you that opportunity to be very zen. Yeah, the consequences are so high that.
Of failure.
Okay, let me give an example, right? So before you get hired, right? Before you get your first professional gig, how bad was it for you to be poor? Like, I think that's, like, for me, it would make me understand it better. Like, okay, from my perspective, right? And also, by the way, I dropped out of school. I just didn't want to bring that up because I want to be devil's advocate here. And I sort of agree with most of the things you're saying, right? I think the way maybe graphics are intuitive for you. When I did the class of software engineering, most of that stuff was quite easy for me. I sort of understood it. I got a job in the UN before I graduated, before I could finish my class. That's part of what motivated me to drop out. And I remember the interview I did, I'd done like 6 Google interviews. Google was like, it's easier. They told me it's easier to what? Apparently their hiring policy. It's better rather. I remember I talked with the recruiter and she was telling me Google's philosophy. Google would rather drop a good candidate than hire someone who they're not sure will be good in the long run, right? Basically, that's how they rejected me. So when I go to the UN at practice interviews, also, like in my field, doing the job is one thing. It's usually way easier than actually doing the interview. The interviews are so unnecessarily complex because most companies want to filter out the actual best among the best, right? And I go to UNICEF. And during those, I spent 4 years at UNICEF, and during those years, things are good. Like almost every year I get a promotion, right? And at the point where, at this point I'd even dropped out. I'd stopped going I'd stopped going back to, I actually did all the classes, but I just never bothered to do the final exam. At some point at UNICEF, I think my job requires me to have like a master's degree to keep it, right? I'd like reach the climax of of the job I can get, right? And the UN is like that, right? And so now I have to retreat and think about what to do because I'd got my hack, there's a path that I'd found, right? And now I can't obviously go back to school because I share exactly your sentiments around education. I feel like there's a lot you can teach yourself, right? But I also feel like I'm too old and maybe too successful to like go back to school, yeah? And so now I think about what do I want to do. And for a few years, I start entrepreneurship, tech entrepreneurship. I do that Uber thing. I sort of build a couple of apps here and there, a couple of web apps and all that. But I actually also did like a film thing, film streaming thing. There's like a period there in my life. I'm sure whatever I'm doing is just there's something missing, right? For me, that was like my moment where I felt like right now, this is like me failing in my life, right? This is me failing in my life. And I read obviously a lot of, what do they call it, right thinking. I read a lot of philosophies sort of that encourage you to embrace failure as part of the living process, yeah? But when you're seeing yourself going down, okay, this is how I imagine it, right? When you're looking and you don't see a way up, right? Most of the things I wanted to do, for example, are too expensive. If you want to build like a serious application here to compete with anything, you want to build like just safe border or whatever, you need a lot of money, right? You want to do a film because that's the other thing I wanted to do, right? You want to do a film, and the way I imagine stuff, you need a lot of money. I had, I think, 2 scripts I'd written, but everyone I shared with would first of all tell me, these are too many actors, how are you going to pay them, right? And that's sort of like the things that were going in my mind, and I just was stuck. And it took me a whole time. It took me like a mental issue to come out of that, right? And I'm just trying to imagine the same thing from your perspective, right? Have you been in a place where you could have fallen back on the convention, where it needed you to be to be that node on the system, right? To have the papers ready, to have some of that formal stuff ready for you to move forward? Or has your career been, every step has been sort of a progress from the previous step?
Yeah, not really. I don't think anyone some people, maybe Justin Bieber has it like that, but most of us, it's really this. I can tell you, even last week felt like that. Like I felt like, oh my God, I'm actually failing. But I feel like sometimes we put ourselves in positions like where we kind of like expect too much from ourselves. Like, for example, especially now with social media, you look at all your friends and they have all these cool things and you're thinking, oh my God, what am I doing, What am I doing? Like, people my age have done this and I'm thinking, oof, maybe it's about time I do this same exact thing, you get. So at the back of your mind, it's wrong, but I mean, you are human, and that's what humans do. That's what happens, yeah. you there's no way. I mean, you can only save yourself for a short time until you fall into this trap. So for me, I think the clarity came from when I was working in Norway, and I was getting offers from all these different companies in Norway. I got some offers from the US, and none of them mentioned anything to do with any formal education papers. They were all asking for like skills and reels and stuff like that. So I realized that in regards to the industry I'm in, that might never come into question. And that's kind of like an industry-based thing. If I was a dentist, I don't really think whatever skills I have would matter. I think they would need some sort of formal, and that's the difference. I think if you're studying to be like a surgeon, I wouldn't trust a surgeon. It doesn't matter how good you are. If you've never been to school, like you dropped out in the first semester because you're too good, no, I'm not interested.
Okay.
So it depends. There are things like if I need a lawyer, I want a lawyer with a master's, because I'm guessing the more they know from school, the better they are. They understand, because I'm guessing lawyers is probably not so much about how much you can argue, but it's about the procedure of the court. So there's so much that works for me only because of the industry I'm in. And again, I wouldn't advise people that are not. It depends on the type of industry you're in, you know. So those decisions. Now, in regards to how the thing you mentioned, where you feel like you need these documents. I don't think I've ever felt like that.
No, I see.
It's funny, even when people are applying to get jobs, every time people send me a document of them, like from a film school, immediately dismissed. Like I'm not like I'm looking for people that actually do the work, not people that studied or whatever. So when someone sends me that thing, I'm thinking, yeah, but where's the work? You know?
Yeah.
So, because that's exactly how it is. People are not trying, like, oh, do you see that stuff that looks terrible? The guy who shot it has a PhD. And you're like, then let me watch it. You know? No one has ever said that.
Like, I don't like this movie, but that guy's a PhD. Okay. Nice, interesting.
Put it back. You know, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's why even people that hire in that space,
I see.
they don't really care about that, because it doesn't matter. No person at home is going to be watching Breaking Bad and thinking, I wonder if people that shot this movie are qualified. Let's search. If they're not, they're like, rewind. We're not watching it anymore.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
So ideally, your path is the most optimized. The way you imagine it, it's the most optimum for like succeeding in your career.
To be honest, I don't think there's a right way or wrong way of doing things. You just like do your best and hope for the best. I think that's the best way to look at it, because there are times I do things and I'm thinking, that's such a silly thing I've just done. That's such a bad move. But then again, because I didn't grow up in a rich family. I grew up in a modest home. But the funny thing is, I always felt rich when I was young. And that's because I wasn't aware of people that were actually rich. We were kept safe in that space where we thought we were okay. And then you come out later on and you are like, what? People actually living in these mansions. We always thought that these buildings were just kind of like in the, like on the other side of the road, and they're just pictures. You have no experience with people that live in them. You think it's white people. Then you realize that the people you're in school with are the ones living in these mansions with swimming pools and stuff. And you're thinking, oh my God, all this time I've been poor and I didn't know. And because of that, I mean, you grow up and it doesn't take a lot to be happy. Like, if there's something I want and I can afford it, I get it. If there's something I need and I can't afford it, then I don't need it. I'm okay without it. I just survive with what I have, and it doesn't put a lot of pressure on myself. So in regards to the work, I always do the project I can do at the time. I have all these ideas written down, and some ideas I'm like, I don't think I can do this just yet. But there'll be a time when I'll probably have money to do it. So I'll save it. And it's those things you look at, and they kind of keep you going, because you're like, I mean, at least I have these ideas. This is like mental capital. It's right there. I'm just waiting. This will lead me here, that will lead me there, and eventually I'll get to this. There's a way it just keeps you, and also writing. I feel like writing, especially for me, because you have to understand my position. I've had severe dyslexia, so writing, reading, like I think I was able to read a sentence when I was like in form 3, form 4. That's when I could like read a sentence myself, and I still couldn't read it out loud because I was nervous that people might hear that I'm trying so hard to connect words, So like orally in school I'd perform really well, but when it came to writing down things, I wouldn't be able to. And the funny thing about it is people that don't understand dyslexia, they think, I don't even know what they think, but basically what happens is if you're writing that there will be boys, you probably write there B and then boys. So you jump out all these words because in your head
it has all connected.
In your head they're all there.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe your head is processing things faster than you're writing. So you miss huge chunks, and you end up not making any sense. And then when you read it back, it makes sense. But it takes someone else to read it for you. Then you realize, oh shit, you know. So for a long time, I would have ideas, and I always thought to myself, there's no way I can write. I can't even say I'm a writer because, you know, I'm a sketch guy. I draw. And my first film, my very first film, Monday, I wrote it with storyboards. Just draw tiny frames.
That was very impressive.
Yeah, and put like speech bubbles. And then I did the same with Bad Mexican. I tried, but then someone told me, I think you need to write it down because this is long and it involves other people. So these other people also need to know what to do. I think it was is it Joel? I think it's Joel who told me that. I don't know how to pronounce his other name to something. I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't want to butcher it. But anyways, he's the one who advised me that. And I wrote it with Notepad. Terrible, like no structure at all. More like, this guy will walk at this thing and then this will happen. That's how I wrote The Bad Mexican. And once I was done with that, I was like, let me try to make a feature film. And now I knew that to make a feature film, I had to be able to explain what I'm thinking in a way that other people are able to
collaborate with others,
to understand. You know? And that's when I went online and started learning how to structure a script, like how scripts are structured and how the whole thing works, you know. And it's taken me a long time, but the more I'm learning about that, the more I'm seeing how difficult it is, and also the more I'm seeing how rewarding it is. Like once you're done writing and you write something nice, there's a feeling, there's that thing you get, you know. So
satisfying.
It's so satisfying. So you write something and you send it to people, and the funny thing is, every time I have a couple of Hollywood friends now. So you write this script, you share it with them, and they point out all these interesting things that they think you should remove or add or whatever, and you're like, oh, this is nice. You share it with a fellow Ugandan, and the first thing they're telling you is, this is not how you spell the word chicken. And you're like, but you know what I'm trying to mean. Can you pick out something more? Because spell check will fix us. Spell check will fix this for us like in a second. We'll just drop it in an AI and it will solve all these issues. These are like issues that we've kind of like, now we're above these issues because there's tools that have been built
to do
these things for us. We no longer have to be thinking at that level. So I'm forgetting where the question is, but I just went on and on about this whole so I guess for me, having some of these things written out and these ideas written, it takes away a lot of fear that I would usually have of what if this fails, what if that fails.
Exactly. Because you see the blueprint.
I'm seeing the blueprint. I'm thinking this will fail. I'll probably struggle for a few months, but
I see. Okay.
Someone else, something else will happen.
I see. Wow.
Something else will happen. So, like I know right now the economy is really bad, but it can't be like this forever. It's just not possible. Like for life to make sense, there has to be ups and downs. And when you're enjoying that up, you have to be aware that at some point there's going to be a down. And you know, when that down is happening, you also have to understand that there has to be an up. I mean, otherwise this down can't just keep going down. And if you look at it like that, it just keeps taking you down. And
how about like a technical challenge? Like, okay. Again, I'm going to give an example from like software engineering world, right? You have a huge chunk of data and you have to probably sort it a certain way, right? There's someone else in Russia that has done that before. You just have to spend, say, 2 hours on Google to figure out that guy's code. Someone in Russia has done it. They publish their code somewhere on the internet and you just have to find it, right? And you also like know what they want. You have a deadline in 3 hours. And you just have to figure out, like there's, you know how the end result should look. You know what they've given you as the input. But it's sort of like the technical expertise to get there. You're blank. It's not like you don't know. It's not like it's the first time this is happening to you. you don't know like the path. The path is not clear at all, right? I imagine this would happen like as when we're doing some like small videos here, we can tell say the editor, we have some editors here. We can tell him, okay, so we want that color, right? The guy who's coloring the video, right? You give him you send him like an image or like another video and tell him that's the color we are aiming for this project, right? And yeah, at that point, like, you know, he's blank. So some of those things are like, so okay, sometimes he can even send back and forth, this thing was shot like that, you know, the camera here is not the same as we are using to say that I can't get to that color. But you know, you see he's blank, he just needs to give it time. Have you had those moments where you know there's a path, you just don't know what that path is, and it's just a technical thing, you just have to like know to like have that technical skill in you to get from one input to the output?
I see what you're saying, but I unfortunately for this one, I'll have to side with your editor. Sometimes you can't achieve things without having, like, there's no way you're going to achieve the color. Let's say you look at someone's wall and you're like, I want that exact feel. But you're forgetting that that's like an oil paint, and for you what you've bought is a water-based paint. So it will try to resemble, but it will never be that, because you're not using specifically the same tools to get it. So in regards to color grading, because I do a lot of it myself, and through try and error, I've learned how important it is to have the color grade you want in mind even before you shoot.
Planning,
so there's a lot of planning involved. So you need to know, like with your art, like what your background, what people are wearing, all these things contribute to how the color grade will look like. So you can't just have people wearing black standing in front of, like, let's say lime green, and you're like, oh, I want it to look like that. Like, it's too late for that decision. Right now you have what you have, and what we can do is just try to make the best out of it. But at that point, you can't really be picking and choosing. Like, you forfeit that at the stage. There's a stage where you're supposed to be thinking about that. But once you miss that stage, and I think this is why it has always been hard for me to edit other people's work, grade other people's work, because the way they look at it is they think that each process is separate. Yeah, but all these things are connected from the beginning, like from the beginning, to the point that even in the writing, I know that these people are in a forest, therefore they're not going to wear green, because if they wear green, they will disappear in the forest. So even in the script, it's written in there that they're going to wear a color like this. And I'm thinking that color is at the opposite of the greens in the color spectrum. So already there's thought in the colors. So now when we're lighting, we're thinking, okay, so what the kind of grading we're going for, it's going to be tailored towards these colors. So let's increase these other colors. That way, when we pull this back, we will get these ones. So the whole thing is planned, and when you get to the grading, it's as simple that you don't even need to do anything fancy. It's because everything is already there.
I see.
And these are some of the things that actually, even now that I'm dealing, like I'm dealing with Netflix directly. So there's a couple of things that they're telling me delivery-wise that are quite interesting. Of course, for me, there's some that I knew. I didn't know at what level, but there's so much things that need to be planned before you even switch on the camera. And these are camera issues that have to be just planned. Like,
Just push your mic.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that have to be pre-planned.
Yeah.
Because you can't just magically get things. The only way you can magically get things is by VFX, kind of like cutting things out, physically adding things, and then those are the only things you will be able to manipulate. So, and this is why I think it's important to understand the process. You might not need to be the one that does all these things, but if you understand what needs to be done at point A for you to be able to do your thing at point F, it helps you prepare better. So at the shoot, as a color grading person, If you're there and you're seeing people doing things and you're like, okay, guys, if you do this here at the grade, we'll not be able to get that thing that you guys want. And because that person understands the grading, the part of the grading.
Yeah.
So I just so happen to be because of my experiences with all these different things, I know a bit of all these things. But if you don't, it's the best option is to have these people around. You have your editor around, you have your color grading person around. An editor, you're shooting something and you're like, let's cut. And the editor is like, well, that will not cut with the other thing. You need to add something here for it to be able to cut with that there. And that way you will not blame them when they're cutting that these things feel jarring. It's because you shot them jarring. They're not magicians. They can't just make up things, you get. So I think that's the kind of education that you need to look for.
I see. Yeah. No, so that will make sense. My question though was, okay, I was trying to hint on imposter syndrome, right? As an artist, you get to a point where you feel like maybe I don't have the required technical skills to pull what I want to pull off.
Yeah, although since for me, these days I write, I try not to write things I can't do.
Okay. That's a good hack. Yeah.
I'm very careful and I try not to write things. Because what I've noticed is sometimes people write like all these gigantic things. And for them, they don't know how these things are done. So they're just writing because it's cool. But because sometimes I might be, there's something I shot in 16 rounds, like a war scene. Now, for me, when I was writing that war sequence, I wrote it exactly how it is in the film because I knew exactly what to do. And I also wrote for contingencies, like what if. So it only has 3 actors, only one main actor. The rest are like the same people that were moving the equipment are just wearing these uniforms. We actually, most of us were wearing, in case the camera turns and it finds someone, we just find them wearing the uniform. And they're just running around, same guy running around like this. And when you're watching it, it looks like it's massive and there's scale and there's all these things happening. But at the core, it's a very, very, very simple. It's just that the person that wrote it knew how to execute it effectively. So we shot it in less than an hour, that entire sequence. Less than an hour. Because we shot it in Lugazi. We were stuck in traffic the whole day. And we got there at around 6. That's right before the sun sets.
Yeah.
And we had to set up quickly and shoot it before the sun goes down. And the only reason we were able to do that is because I knew exactly what I needed for the edit. I knew exactly what I needed to shoot for. Like pretty much everything was mapped out. We just went to execute. There was no time to think. No time to think, to the point that they're setting up the jeep over there. We're shooting something here. By the time we're done with this, we just run to put the camera on the jeep and shoot the other thing. Do like three takes and we leave.
I see.
And everyone is like, I hope we got it. And I'm like, I know we got it.
I see. Okay. So yeah, let's also talk about the story. So I know you've mentioned when we were starting this conversation that you don't aim to say preach to people. You don't aim to lecture people. Yeah. But I think from movies I've watched, usually when you sit down to write, you want to say something. Like there is most people, if you watch say Seth MacFarlane, if you watch Family Guy, initially you'd think this guy is just randomly creative, right? Until you watch enough of his work to say, oh, okay, this guy is satirical, but even his satire is, he's saying something, he has a point of view that he's expressing in almost all his work, right? Do you know if there's like a thing you're trying to say with your stories? Like a very big theme. I'm talking about like a very, very big theme.
I think every time that question is asked, I think people think for there to be something said, it needs to be something of deep meaning. Like I might be making a movie and all I'm saying is, have fun or
I see.
waste your time on this. Or like, there's always something being said. It might not necessarily be something that the person watching is looking for to be told. So I also feel like in these movies, I like revenge films a lot. I've always enjoyed watching them. So most of the times when you watch the film, you might pick out something, yourself. You might pick out, because there's a lot of things that are there that I'm saying, but I mean, it's up to you what you end up picking up from it. And the reason it's kind of left vague like that is because I don't want to like insist on it, like this is the theme, this is the theme, this is the theme. For me, entertainment is like priority.
I see.
Don't
you get wowed? Okay, so when I first watched, Girl in Yellow Jumper multiple times. But the first time I watched it was because of the hype.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this guy saying? Right? Like I saw all the technical stuff. Like I was like, okay, this guy is a good one, but I've already seen some of your shots on YouTube. I've already seen some of your work on YouTube. So I wasn't like impressed with the technical bit of the work because I knew you could pull that off. But then like the story, I was like, okay, what is this guy saying? What is this movie about? Right? I watched it a few times. I have theories. We can debate the theories of what I think it's about. But that's the first impression I got, right? And I'm wondering, most times when I'm looking out for movies, I'm a big fan, say, of Batman, and so when a Batman movie comes out, I spend money, go to the theater, Batman, Joker, anyone in the ecosystem there. When it comes out, I spend my money and go to the theater and think, even if it's, okay, they're not on Netflix, but even if I could watch it another way, I usually want to go and immerse myself in that, like, feeling of watching the movie, right? But I still usually want to get out, not usually, but usually I get out of those movies. When something has sat on me, when the movie it's not just entertainment. I'm not just seeing like strokes or like I'm also fascinated by cinema. I'm not like being impressed by how they're lighting the thing or how they're doing the technical stuff. The story itself, it has that hypnotic sense to it that it's talking to me. I relate, right? So that's like for me what I'm wondering. Don't you feel that when you're watching movies, and don't you want your movies to give to move people the same way?
Yeah, I think maybe you're confusing entertainment with this like explosions and whatnot. That's not what I mean by entertainment. Entertainment it could just be a movie about just two people talking in a room.
Yeah.
And what I mean by entertainment is that it's written, like, it's engaging. When you're watching it, it's like, you can't look away. It's like there's something, it's interesting, it's like that. Now, in the end, like, for me, this is my philosophy. I don't mean it's the right way or what. When I listen to a song, the very first time I listen to that song, I will either like it or hate it because of how entertaining it is. Right? Now, there's songs I used to listen to as a child, and they were so nice, and I used to dance to them, and up to today I like them. But now when I listen to them as an adult, and I listen to what this person was saying, I'm thinking, wow, not only were they entertaining, but they actually had an interesting message behind this. But that message was not the priority.
At the point
when I listen to this song, it's really not the message that pulled me in. You understand? I listened to the song and I was fascinated by the fact that we're able to actually inject in a bit of soul, and they also injected in something under all that entertainment. But it's the entertainment that always pulls you in. It is the entertainment that pulls you in. Because there are movies you look at and you're like, oh, that movie, you see what it's trying to say, but it's so obsessed with saying that thing at the expense of why you really came to watch the movie. So now when I'm saying that, for me, my priority is entertainment, I don't mean like just blind entertainment, like blowing things up and just trying to like...
Who killed Captain Alex? That was entertaining.
Exactly. You see, but that's entertainment. It's kind of... It puts you in this position where you look at all these people and you're like, are they laughing at us or are they laughing with us?
Exactly.
So for me, I feel like I want to make a movie that when you watch it, like I'm trying to make movies that made me want to make movies. Something I watch and it inspires me and it feels nice, and I feel like I don't know, the feeling like pumped. Like when I come out of the cinema, like the first time I came out after watching, what was that? Was it Infinity War? Yeah, that Avengers film.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, because I'd watched all these different things, and then I watched that, and I was like, oh my god, that was so good. Like, it just felt so nice, you know. But what are they saying exactly? They could be saying a lot of things, and it could be interpreted by many people as a different thing. You know, you could say, oh, it's about climate things. It's about that Thanos is trying to there's all these different ideas that you could get out of it. And I'm sure they know what they're doing. They know that it's going to be a discussion, and people would think it means this or means that or means that. So it means that they're not focusing so much on what the movie is saying. They're focusing more on the important thing, which is like to entertain the audience and to make sure that we have a good time. For me, I will focus more on that. Focus more on like trying to give people a good time. If it was up to me, I would actually just make movies. You know, like those is it Commando? It's one of those movies that I sit home with my parents.
Yeah.
Sit with your friends. People who drink alcohol probably enjoy it more. Sit there, you watch all this senseless action, and it's fun. It's a nice day for you guys to sit there. It's kind of like the reggae. What's this dancehall kind of version of cinema?
Yeah. I see. Okay.
Where you don't understand what this Jamaican guy is saying, but it rhymes.
Yeah.
You know, and you're just dancing. So it's my goal is not to make those kind of movies, of course. So I'm thinking there's a way you can make those kind of movies that also have something. I don't know if you've watched True Lies.
Yeah, but True Lies. Yeah, this was another thing.
Yeah. So like a movie like that, it's like an action-packed film, a bit of senseless action, but there's something about it. Like Terminator: Judgment Day. It's one of my favorite films. You know. You watch it and you're thinking, oh, this is like really nice action, but there's something that's being said, and that's why you can watch it multiple times, because there's always like a layer hidden that you probably missed the first time.
I see.
That's the goal, anyways. I
hear you.
I haven't reached that level.
But this is good. The same thing I told you. Like I watch your work, so I'd say for myself that as a movie consumer, I'm very keen, right? So I would watch your work, but when we have this conversation, sort of the gap now gets filled, right? So I start to understand that this is where I was going. That's like different when I come out of a movie. The first time I watched Girl in a Jumper, first of all, pulling off the car thing where people are just talking in a car for all that long.
That's incredibly hard.
Yeah, that was impressive. I was like, okay, this guy is,
That is so hard because it's so boring. It's so hard.
Exactly, yeah. Like, okay, that alone was like, this guy he's good. Like the storytelling is there, right? But how you resolve the story, okay, it's at the end when you've been so engaged, and that's like, I think, where you watch a cast scene, you first of all, you're impressed by all these things. If you're paying attention to them, you're like, this guy managed to pull this thing off. But then now the movie is not ending in a way where you go where you're like, man, I've watched this movie, right? So for me, that's what I think that's what I was going to, is like, it can be entertaining, it can be the Avengers thing, but in the end, you have to still pull off that ending. The ending has to be where, okay, I'm done with this. It's like I've been doing a job, I'm done with this, and I'm so proud of whatever. Yeah,
I think I see what you're saying. I've had a debate about that. I remember one time we're discussing. Most of my movies I have like they always end badly, like with people dying and everyone dies and stuff like that. And I was talking to someone and I'm like, this is such a grim ending. I was thinking, isn't life like this?
I see.
And as I also said, for me, what I imagine, you watch Titanic and Jack doesn't die. Think about that. Would it be as impactful as it was? Yeah. It's funny, every time I watch it, I want him to leave.
Okay, so but I get that. I
feel like he has to die.
Yeah.
And there's this movie with Chris Pratt. It's called, where they're traveling in a spaceship, and he woke up before he's supposed to wake up, and then he wakes someone else up. I forget what it's called.
With Jennifer Lawrence, right?
Yeah. So I watched that film, and there's a point where I felt like one of them had to die.
Yeah. Okay.
And if they had died, there's a way it would have felt more impactful. There's more like someone has actually lost their life for this thing. Like therefore, kind of like how the old woman throws that heart of the ocean in the water at the end. I'm like, just give it to the guys. But it's like you don't really want your audience to decide where your movie goes. Like this is kind of the power. This is like the power you have. You have the power to like decide. And also, the more I've learned about writing, I've started understanding that before I would write the ending, like I would know how the movie is going to end. But when I was doing 16 rounds, I didn't really know how the movie was going to end. So I was writing, and for the first time in my life, characters were able to kind of like write themselves through. Like I was writing and I wanted something to go this way because this is what I planned on doing. But then as I'm typing, the character just feels like they don't want it to go that way. And for the first time, I was like, okay, I've wrote myself into a corner now because this character doesn't want to do this thing. But I somehow have to get it there again. Now, how do I do that? Let me just listen to what these characters have to say through me. And after that, I realized that, okay, so it's actually up to the characters. So if you're writing a film and the characters make all these bad decisions and they do all these things and they have to die at the end, I'm not going to change that because it makes people happy. It's like
I see what you mean.
This is the characters and this is what they're doing, and I'm just here kind of like I'm like a what would I say, like a shepherd or something. I'm just here to watch these things move and to make sure that they move the right way and I shoot them properly. But I mean, I haven't yet gotten to that level, but I feel like if I get to that level of writing where I can control that, it's probably just going to get worse. People will probably just do crazy things because people do crazy things.
Yeah, I see. Okay, I think these things are going to run out of space. So, okay. Okay, so one thing, right? First question is, now these are like very cliche questions. Ugandan filmmakers, how do you rank them? Like, do you have a list of your favorite Ugandan filmmakers, or are you not allowed to say because?
No, not that I'm not allowed to say. I think it's really the issue is that we see things very differently. Again, like from what we've been talking about, there's a lot of Ugandan filmmakers that are making good films, but not my kind of films. You understand? Like their films are good for a niche, kind of like how my films might not work for them. So it's really hard for me to rank them. But if you're talking like technical expertise and stuff, I'd be like, I know some guy that's really good at shooting. It's a really good DP, like Isaac. Isaac is a really good DP. I know, like I could tell you that so and so is a good this, so and so is a good that, but it's kind of like the project that because you bring all these things together to make this project. I could say this project is not really for me. It's not the kind of movie that I like watching. It doesn't mean it's not a good film, So it's really hard for me to rank them in that sense because. I mean, we all look at different things.
Yeah, okay. So let's talk about Hollywood. I know that's safer. Which Hollywood filmmakers are making stories that you enjoy? Or just which movies in Hollywood do you watch, apart from Terminator now? Wow. That you be like, movies or TV, actually?
It's so hard for me because I'm just... to understand someone, you need to have hindsight of who they are. So I have 16 terabytes worth of movies.
Yeah, I see.
If I watched all of them, it would probably take like 97 years, non-stop. So a question like that now, for me, is hard.
You're saying there is no movie on that
I
60
watched
terabyte disc
so
that
many.
has impressed you so much that you
so
watched?
many. There's so many that if I start talking about them and I'm like, oh, then I missed this one, I missed that one.
see.
So when I watch this back, I'll be thinking, how can I not mention this? How can I not mention that?
yeah.
It has had so much more impact than that one. You understand?
Yeah.
But like pretty much all the work of like most of Spielberg's work, most of Edgar Wright's work. One of my favorite directors is the now I'm forgetting. I tend to mix their names up.
What movie?
It's James Cameron and Christopher Nolan. I don't know why I always
So
mix
Nolan
them up.
is the Batman trilogy
No,
guy?
I know.
Okay.
It came back to me. Yeah, but yeah, I'm a huge fan of James Cameron. I feel like I see a lot of myself in him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because he also used to be a sketch artist.
I see, yeah.
We
Okay.
pretty much had the same interests growing up, but of course he was born in the right place.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, but with your story of dyslexia, I actually thought you tilt more towards Nolan.
I love Nolan. Well, okay, I'll tell you. I feel like Nolan sometimes. Some of his films are a little bit too complicated.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Which, I like for example, Tenet. I don't think I had as much fun as I thought I would, and I also think it was the same thing with Dunkirk. When I watched Dunkirk, I was thinking, I don't understand this film. Why am I not getting this film? So I realized that it wasn't a film about I wasn't necessarily supposed to follow a car. It was a film about an event.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I guess that's different.
I see.
But like some of his older stuff, like Memento. Oof.
The raw stuff, yeah.
I was like, this is incredible. I had to watch that movie many times. It was complex, but in a very, very good way. Like a way. These are the films I would aspire to make. Like a film like that requires some level. Like you need like 7 brains in one head to be able to do that. I don't even understand.
I've always wondered though, is it just the idea? Because like Memento is so perfect that I don't think it requires it's not recreatable. It's sort of like that idea that comes to you and you're like, actually, if I'm to make a movie about memory, this is just the right way to make it. That is like how I imagine. That's okay. I don't know how the guy makes.
Can't even imagine how you'd come up with something like that. I don't see. What I think is that he must have been inspired by something we just don't know about. Maybe like a movie from Japan or Korea or something. Something that for us we've not seen.
Yeah.
So we assume that he came up with all that. But there has to be, he must have seen something. Maybe a short film, small animation that hinted on that idea. Maybe not do it exactly how he did it, but gave him that light bulb moment where you're like, oh,
Yeah, no, that reminds me. I was watching this. I have this masterclass for Martin Scorsese. I don't know if that's the right way to pronounce his name. Yeah, but like the way he says how he has been inspired by like a lot of other films, like a lot of the scenes in like his movies, and like how he says this was actually I picked this. I just stole this from this. Yeah, like it demystifies the whole thing. Usually when you're watching, say, a long like people like that who have made a lot of work and they still have like new impressive things in their new movies, you're like, how creative can one person be? But when you hear them talk and it's like, okay, I copied this from here. I watched a movie that moved me enough to want to borrow that idea. It just sort of makes it all human. A little bit, yeah.
I feel like, everyone steals. It's always funny when I make a film and someone watches it and then they go on YouTube and they write that, oh look man, he copied this from me, and I'm thinking, actually I copied it from the place where that guy also copied it from.
We copied from the same guy.
We copied from the same people. You just don't even know where this person copied it from, so you have no idea what you're talking about. Because every single person, there's nothing new under the sun. Everything has been. You look at Hitchcock and you're thinking he's like the master. when you listen, you're like, he got this from here.
Yeah.
This was an accident. He, like for example, the vertigo effect, that thing where we for a long time I always thought he came up with it, but it was like his DP that had tried it on something else, and it just happened, and then it became his thing. It became Hitchcock's thing. It wasn't even his thing. It was someone else's thing. So for me, I have no fears. I just, whatever I like. If I see something I like in manga, I'll steal it. If I see something I like somewhere else, I think the best way to do it is to try and steal from many different places as possible, so that once you put everything together, people are like, that thing kind of looks like this, but it can't be, because now look at these other things. They're not connected. You've copied like 1,000 movies.
That's the thing where someone tells you, your movie reminds me of this, and then there's like, no, actually for me it reminds me of this guy, because you got.
And in your head you're thinking, oh, you guys, you're catching me.
Yeah. Okay. So let's the final topic, the business of filmmaking, right? So now you are plugged to Netflix. When I have my movie, do I come to you and you said,
I wish that's how it works. I'm also like a very small player.
How does this distribution thing work? Like from how you understand it. Say, for example, if I make my movie, I invest 100 million, I make my movie.
Yeah.
Where do I go to start distributing it?
Well, first off, you need to know what your movie is. And then by knowing what your movie is, then you will know which distributors to approach. If you made a movie about vampires, you're just going to waste your time if you try to sell it to Oprah's channel. Now, why would they buy a movie about vampires? It might be the best movie about vampires, but Oprah is not interested in that. That's not what his channel does. So knowing what you have and who to go to is like really, really important. So you make a movie for 100 million, yes. Now, assuming before you made that movie, you know the audience that, so you approach the right distributor, and if you spent your money well, it should be a good movie. And good things sell themselves. You don't really need a lot of work to sell a good product. You just have to approach the right people.
I see.
So you do a good product, you approach these distributors. It's the funny thing is that these people are actually looking for content. They're looking for it. We are the ones. We are like the bosses. They're the ones that are working for us. They are selling. We are like the guys that grow the mwani. They're the guys that make the coffee out of it. Or are the guys that sell the actual coffee at the coffee shop. Without us, they have nothing to sell. You get. But our produce has to be at the level that's acceptable by the people that buy this coffee from them, which is also, we are also part of those people. So sometimes you might find that for you to process this coffee to get to the level that they'll buy it, it's so expensive. And it makes a lot of people around you worry that what if those people don't buy it from you? Then you're stuck with this expensive coffee and no one will ever. And that's the fear that you need to get out of your system. You just need to know that how come these people who live right next door to Netflix are spending all this money, all this time to make a movie, and then you who lives here in Uganda, you don't want to spend even a quarter of that. You don't want to spend a quarter of the time. You don't want to work as hard, but you expect that they're going to buy from you. So I feel like people just need to put in the work, try to put the money in the right places.
And what's the value of the trailer? I know you, from the stories you've been sharing, the girl in the yellow jumper, it's the trailer that put it out there.
It is the trailer. I think the trailer is like the calling card. It's like with movies, it's more like it's like your CV, I guess. It's the thing. So if you made a trailer right now of a movie about, think of the most boring subject you can make. A movie, okay, this might not be as boring, but for me, I think this would be really boring. A movie about, let's say, full figures interaction with someone else. And now you make that movie and you make a trailer, and the trailer gets 100 million views. People will look for you to buy that movie. You will not have to even. You see, it doesn't matter what the subject is, but the trailer has gotten 100 million people interested. Whatever that movie is, they know at least at least half of those people will look for it. At least half of those people will come and watch it. So that's how it works. You need to like study. You need to study the space. You see what are people interested in now, and I've been trying to tell a lot of people about this, but like how people say kids don't lie. Oh, kids. For some reason, for me, I've never forgotten how it was when I was a child. And I know I used to lie a lot. I knew I used to manipulate people. And sometimes I would do it knowingly that they will believe me because I'm a child. And I'll take advantage of that.
Yeah.
And sometimes I look at adults and I'm like, don't they remember? How can they be naive? How can they think that 5-year-old person is an angel? These people are clever and they know what they're doing. You understand? So because of that, knowing these things, and I look at the audience we have now, all these people with TikTok and with these things and with these things. Now I'm trying to explain to some of these people we work with, and I'm telling them, okay, this is too long. This trailer is too long. It needs to be, and they're like, but that's the standard. I'm like, yeah, but this was the standard when there was no TikTok, when there was no Instagram Reels, when there was nothing. This was a standard at the time of television where you only watch movies on Saturday. This is when this standard was made.
Yeah.
So you need to stop thinking like this. You need to understand the people we're dealing with now. And it's like all these people forgot how it feels to be a young person. So you're trying to explain to them that we need to make shorter things. Those movies of 3 hours, I feel like they're probably gone. Right now, I think that thing, the show of like love, robots and death, something like that.
That's dope. That's so dope. Yeah.
I feel like that's the future.
That's so dope.
That's the future.
Yeah. So also, okay. Anyway, I agree. I think that the audience for like full length features is definitely not going anywhere if you do it right,
course.
and if also if you're building for the theater, right?
Yeah.
Right, because that experience in the theater, if you go and sit for 30 minutes in the theater, you still feel like.
Yeah, but that's, you see, watching things in theater is different than watching a theater production on TV.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I agree.
So I can watch a 4-hour film in the cinema, but when I'm on Netflix and I'm picking,
when you're at home,
I'll see 4 hours and I'll be like,
what can happen during those 4 hours?
feels like such a big commitment. You understand?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean when I'm watching that anthology thing of like love, death, and I know the episode I'm watching is not connected to the next one, so I can stop anytime I want, and I can always resume later. Like there's a feeling, that feeling, and I don't know if I would enjoy watching those things in cinema. Probably not. I feel like they're probably too short for cinema. So everything has its place. But now, since we're talking about like streaming, you really can't apply the same formula. Like of theater. Well, like, you see, in theater we had to scream so people can hear us. So now on Netflix, let me just scream at all these people. So you're applying that to a different language. You're applying this thing to. So that's what I think about when I say that that's the future. I think for television, especially things like streaming, where people are watching that thing on the same device that has TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and all these other things. They're basically sometimes just waiting for this thing to end so they can watch another thing. So it has to be so interesting for them to stay engaged and be interested in watching the next one.
I see. Yeah.
So that's what I mean. But cinema, of course, as long as cinema exists, feature length films will
I see.
always.
Yeah. No, I agree. Okay, so yeah, we go back to distribution, right? Obviously, trailers are important. Knowing who would probably buy your film, that's important. But then the question is, how do I get to know? Like, okay, I'm new to film, for example, right? I don't know which people buy films, right? But I know there is Gazaland. I don't know if Gazaland, by the way, is still there. But people used to sell their movies in Gazaland. If you make a movie for 2M, you go to Gazaland, you make a deal with the guy gives you 3M, and then he distributes your movie, right? But say you make a movie that actually has some budget, right? Which do you know, by the way, I may be asking you, I don't know. Do you know who are the right people in Uganda to approach to talk about distribution?
In Uganda, I don't know. I don't know anyone, but I'm sure they're there. I think when it comes to distribution, you have to understand I'm also not an expert on that issue.
Yeah.
All I know is the same way things have always worked for me is like you try to do the best you can, and if you do it well enough, it will just sell itself.
The universe will take over.
Yeah, so you make a really good film, and I mean, people like, it's crazy how it works. I don't even know. Like, as long as you get the things in your control right, the things that you have control over, if you get those things right, you put the film out there, and you have to understand that distribution companies make a lot of money from your film. So it's in their best interest to have your film. So you put your film out there, and it's nice. They'll find it. They'll look for you because they make money. You've already done the biggest part of the job already. So right now, for them, the trailer is good enough. It has pulled them in. So it's an easy sell. It's an easy sell for them to try and sell it. Because also what you have to understand is that most of these distributors are like, they're like, they don't really care about the content of the film. They don't care what the film means. They don't care if it's good film. It's none of their business. They're not like an award show. For them, they're all about money. They're all about people that can come and watch that movie. Now, you can make a movie where it's just like paint drying up. But if you can market that movie to get people interested in watching that paint, these people don't need to understand it. They don't need to understand like a movie about paint. For them, they're like, what? There's 400 million people interested in paint. Okay, people are weird, but bring it over. For them, it's this thing. You put it in, money comes out of this side. That's all they care about. So, I think it's very, very important for you to get to understand that and learn how to like market and push your product and make good trailers, like good calling cards.
So maybe one last thing, by the way, if you're shooting on your project, we would like to send some of our guys here to come and help you for free. I want to give you some slaves. Would you be open to something like that? I know, not doing like the complex stuff that would, like helping out with the bugs. Yeah, things that you need to do just so they get familiar with the process.
It's so funny how everyone always says, I can come and carry the bags. But these bags are filled with people's equipment that they would never allow you to carry.
Yeah, true.
The owners of those bags are more than happy to carry them themselves.
The question though, is there room for...
There's always room. For me, the issue, like I've always tried to invite people to come and be around when we're shooting. But sometimes it's hard because you're working on a project, client doesn't want anyone else to see it, stuff like that. On my own projects, I would have people around. Like I had people around when I was doing 16 rounds. It showed me how people are uninterested. I mean, when the film is done, they're like, okay. But the process is so boring.
Making the sausage.
The process is extremely boring, and you're just sitting there waiting for hours. Power's gone. People are sitting there. We started off with like, I don't know how many people, but it was a big number. And on the last day, we only had 2 people. 2 people.
Like the observer.
Think about that. Yeah, everyone else left.
I see.
Because it's boring. It's boring to just sit there and watch things not work. Because they usually don't. In the beginning, things are not working. It's frustrating. It's like, so most people just quit because people like easy things. So I have no problem with people coming. It's just that sometimes I just don't have. When I'm going to shoot, there's so much on my mind that I can't remember to remind people to show up. You know.
Yeah. No, we'll you just be putting on your WhatsApp status. We'll be monitoring it for you.
Precisely.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much, Loukman, for
Thanks for
making the
having
time. This has been a very good conversation, at least for me, because I've been looking forward to it. I thought I'd be too nervous to have a good conversation, but I've enjoyed the conversation. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Hopefully someone has something to pick from there.
Yeah. No, true. I think so. I think.
And there's no right way of doing things. I'm very, very, very afraid of people thinking that the way the way I've done something is how it's supposed to be done. I am like gambling and trying to figure out things, and I just think if you think my method works for you, good. If you don't think it's just do your own way. Don't start coming at me and telling me that I'm telling people wrong things, because I also don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
If it has worked for me,
Yeah. No. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for coming.